Hello and welcome to episode 18 of PhotoKitchen. I am your humble host, MD Welch, and today on the menu we have a gear review. We're talking all about carts, specifically the rock and roll cart from MultiCart. And if you're a photographer, a filmmaker, a DJ, anybody getting gear in or out of a building, this very well might be a cart you're looking at, you own or you have owned, and maybe you want to look at again or you want to accessorize. Because we're not only going to review this cart, but we're going to make this cart better because it's not very good. I'm not gonna lie. This is maybe my 6th multi-cart in my career. Now, in my previous life in corporate America, we bought a couple of these, destroyed them, had to buy a few more, and ended up cannibalizing them several times to make 1 or 2 good carts. Now, those were not as well made as this cart was. They didn't hold as much weight, so they were a little bit more prone to being broken, and we did abuse them and we did overweight them. If we had bought the right carts or they had made this version of the cart at the time, we might not have gone through so many carts. But I will say that the MultiCart brand, as far as build quality goes, it's a C+. I don't even know if it's really worth a B-. There's things about this cart that I absolutely love. First of all, you can't get a cart with this many features at this price point. And this is specifically the Rock and Roller MultiCart 18R, which at the time that I bought it and the time of this recording was the longest cart that they had with the highest payload. It's 42 inches collapsed in this particular mode, but it does extend out to 60 inches with a payload of 700 pounds. That 700-pound payload sounds excessive, but first of all, you do not want to overweight these carts. When you overweight them, they will break really quickly. Specifically, these casters will bend, and the 18R has maybe the strongest casters out there. They also have solid wheels rather than pneumatic wheels, which is a huge benefit to the actual usage of this cart. You don't have to worry about coming out and finding deflated wheels. That 700-pound weight limit, though, you might not ever get close to it, but it's nice to have that as a cushion. And I'm sure with my Pelican cases, C-stands, an occasional combo stand on these things, some sandbags, some stingers, electrical extension cords, I've probably gotten pretty close to the 700-pound limit. But you definitely don't want to get too close to it because these are made in a way that the minute you get close to exceeding that weight, these carts aren't just going to kind of groan at you. They're going to start to break. By the way, one of the weakest parts of this, as I mentioned, are the casters. And just always be careful with whatever model cart that you get, that when you're doing transitions over thresholds, but especially elevators or loading docks or something like that, that you watch when you're going through that little gap. If the wheels turn sideways and they drop in, especially if you have a cart with narrow wheels, those casters will immediately bend. And once they're bent, there's nothing you could really do with it. As far as the cart itself, again, I've had this for several years. When I first got it and it arrived to me, I actually had to use a file to file down some of the holes to get things to fit correctly. But overall, after I did that, the usage of the cart's been really nice. Again, solid wheels, standard wheels on the front with a solid axle, so those don't turn on the back, and the front of the cart has these wheels on a caster, which makes them pretty easy to move around. There are grease fittings on here, one of which fell off right after I bought the cart, so again, C+ like build quality. There are 2 handles on this cart. Collapsing the handles down are a little bit of work. There's these little cables here that you pull up on, and that will collapse down the handles, which makes it easy for transport, but also loading gear. Once the smaller of the 2 handles lays down, it's flat like the rest of the tubing, so you could stack gear on it without having things falling off because the handle is uneven. The taller of the 2 handles, when it lays down, does lay down in a way that it has a lip on it that will cause gear not to lay flat on it. Not that you would probably use it this way, but it does not lay smooth. This, as far as the size of the cart goes, will fit into a medium-size SUV with a little bit of work, small SUV if you're creative, and a decent-sized SUV with ease. Another nice thing about the cart is that it is not super heavy. There are better carts out there, but they're so heavy that it's almost a 2-person job to especially get them in an SUV where you maybe have a lot of gear and you're putting the cart on top of things. That can be a real pain to get the cart in and out. At the time that I bought this cart and the time of this recording, the cart's about $400. And while that's not cheap, It's still far more affordable than a more heavy-duty cart. But if you are hauling around a lot of weight, you're getting into 1,000-pound, 1,200-pound, you're hauling around a sandbags and stuff like that, this cart's not going to do that, and you have to be aware of it. This cart can also be done different configurations. You could actually use this as a flat bed, and you don't have to put up the second handle. You can also use the other arm here as like a hand cart if you wanted to, which I think is a terrible idea, but it can be used as a hand cart if you wanted to. But for most people, they're going to use it with both handles up and either in this position, in a collapsed position, or they will extend it out. On the bottom of the cart, there are tensioning little screws that you could loosen. And once you do that, the cart will extend all the way out and you will get a click. There is only one little safety button down here at the bottom of the cart that will allow you to collapse the cart down. So it's really easy for this to come down on you if you're not paying attention. So it's a good idea to tighten these little screws to make sure they're not going to, or the cart itself is not going to collapse down on you. You could maybe see on the video that these little plastic wing nuts have already started to broken off, and I don't abuse my gear. I'm very gentle on my gear, and it doesn't take much for some of these plastic components to fail. Another good example are these yellow pipes that are pipe fitting or protectors here that are supposed to stay in the cart to keep water or dust from going down into the pipes. Those things shredded almost immediately. So that is another downside or mark against the build quality. But in the longest length, again, I believe this is 60 inches according to the brochure. This is a very long cart, and you could certainly put a lot of gear on this, which is another thing to be aware of. If you're going into office spaces, older hotels that have smaller elevators, this might be too long to get into an elevator without some very fancy getting it in and sliding it in and moving it around. So if you can, before you load a whole bunch of gear on this in the extended version, do a little bit of scouting to make sure that you have the room to slide this into the correct particular place. So this is the overall of the cart. And again, it's not too bad, but there are some pretty big issues. First of all is the gaps on the tubing or the piping of this. If you're putting, again, stingers, electrical cable, any sort of cabling, sandbags, anything small, they always fall through this. It never fails, especially when you're trying to wedge stuff in here. It always falls through this gap. So the first piece of advice or first accessory I highly recommend for any model of these carts is some decking. Now, in this particular case, I actually bought decking from MultiCart. I'm not somebody who doesn't know how to build things. I just don't have a lot of time to do DIY projects. And I bought these used off of a camera store. So this is actually made by MultiCart. And if you can see here, like there's areas where it was chipped away and the carpeting's kind of come off. Again, this is a company that's made a really good product with not really good fit or finish. But this does do a pretty good job. There are these little blocks on here. They're in different spaces because of the length or the width of the tubing is a little bit different when you extend it. But this is the short piece for the extended piece or the extended part of the deck. And then this is the 42-inch. Take note that the carpeting goes all the way on the back side. I think this is 1/2-inch plywood. I'd have to bust out a ruler, but I think it's about 1/2 inch. The carpeting goes all the way around and then also covers where it rests on the rails here. They also have these little metal tabs that come down that just get in the way, and you'll see this in a second when I put them on there. But even the blocks themselves, some of them are already kind of starting to break. So if you're building this, I'm sure you could build a better version of this, and heck, who knows, maybe on Etsy or some sort of eBay thing, you could sell your own version. One thing I would say, if you are going to DIY and make this your own, again, do the carpet all the way around. The carpet makes the cart quiet when you're rolling it through an office space. It doesn't sound like this carpet would give you a lot of cushion, but it just limits down all that metal clinking, especially if you got Pelican cases on this metal. It just makes the cart really quiet on both the top and the bottom where the rails are. But I would say also you should bevel the corners here on the outside, so on the back end and on the front end. That way the extension of the deck, if you're coming into drywall or something, it doesn't damage it. But once you put these on there, you have a very stable platform, and they're never easy to put on, especially when I'm on camera, because of those little blocks. There we go. And some of the carpets come up, they're not really, they've warped a little bit, but once you put gear on them, they're fine. Now you have a little bit of a wider base to put things on, you have a quieter base to put things on, and it's just far more stable. And this to me is the #1 accessory that people should add to a multi-cart. And again, if you're remotely DIY inclined, you could figure this out. The decking's just slightly wider than the actual piping, but of course you can even make it wider on your own if you're going to DIY it. Again, bevel those things, carpet it, maybe even put a little bit of padding underneath the carpet just to give yourself a little bit of extra cushion, but it does making loading gear on and off this so easy, especially if you're just putting backpacks on, the straps don't fall down. It's really nice. Deck your MultiCart for sure. If you are going to order decking from MultiCart though, make sure that you get the right model because the extensions, when it's collapsed or extended, is different on every model. You would have to order the correct decking. So if you're like me and you're not a DIYer, you don't have time to do that, you can find this. And if you could find them used as I did, great. But again, you could probably make them yourself for a fraction of the cost. Next thing to add to your MultiCart are some bags. And the nice thing about these handles is you could add some sort of bags to both the front and the back handle. One that I would recommend more than the other is just an all-around, it's just basically like an open-ended duffel here, just a big duffel bag. And again, it is specific to every make and model of the MultiCart, so make sure you're getting the right one. But this is by Grip in Gaff, so it's gripingaff.com. And this is the first iteration of this bag, and I have to say, overall, it's been very good, but it has seen a bit of abuse. And there's holes at the bottom of this bag that are caused by two things. There's just ballistic nylon on the other side of this. There's no padding, there's no solid piece of material. So if you put anything like a stand in here, it pushes this down, and the bag itself, it's just long enough that it can come in contact with the street. You get friction, or you actually have the weight of the stands themselves go through the ballistic nylon. The solution that I'm gonna come up with, I'm just gonna find somebody who sews and just sew a piece of maybe a couple of pieces of chloroplast with foam on either side at the diameter of the bottom of this bag, and then just drop that insert in the bottom, and then I should be good to go. That or newer versions of this bag have that exact same feature, and I think it's an added option. Get that option. Because you can put stands in here. I've put C-stand extension arms, the turtle-based stands. I've taken the extensions out and put them in there. It's an easy way to travel with C-stands. And if you have that base in there, you could definitely hold on to it because this does hold a lot. But what this is really great at is loading this up with like soft boxes in their bags. That way you don't have to have all this stuff on the top of it. It's always falling off. You got to bungee cord those things. It's a real pain to keep all that stuff on there. So this is nice. It goes on, in this case, the back handle, and with nothing in it, it goes on really easy. If you have anything inside of this, if you have two people, you can slide it on so you can pull this on and off without taking things out of it. It does have a buckle system in here with a cinch strap, so you could load it up, buckle it, cinch it down, so then that way any soft boxes or anything, they're kind of tight, they're not going to fly out on you. And again, it's a really nice accessory. That was actually the first thing I bought for the cart, and it's just a lifesaver when you're packing gear up, especially soft boxes, lightweight stands, like lightweight boom arms, or like if you're doing any sort of fishing poles for sound. All of that stuff goes in this bag. It's so much easier to use because of it. And again, it keeps that stuff off the top from falling down and getting run over at the worst times. The last accessory is actually made by MultiCart, and this is their rock and roller kind of like accessory bag. This goes on the other side here, and it just extends over and slides down. But it has all these zipper pockets, and it's great for like little knickknacks or stuff. Like this bag, this pocket goes all the way down the length. So if you had like, I've put collapsible beauty dishes in here before. Those work really well. These two pockets at the top are nice and big and neat. I've actually used these pockets to jam like a Yeti cooler or Yeti mug in here as an impromptu holder to get my drink into a place as I'm pushing this out. The bigger pockets on the bottom, this one goes all the way to the bottom, and this one here is great for holding, like I put my light meter in here, and it's great for other items, smaller items, little knickknack stuff that maybe didn't make it into your tool bag or your grip bag, or maybe things that just always need to be with the cart. Maybe you're just wrapping up bungee cord or something like that. Anything like that, this is really nice. But of the accessories that I've added to this, this is the one that I'm glad that I have it. I'm happy that I purchased it. But if I had to live without one of the three, this is the first one to lose. But the nice thing about having this on the other side of the arm is what you've done now is you've also closed the gaps on both sides of the arms here. So if you have anything that's there that you're worried about sliding out like a pole or a C-stand, these bags will catch that and keep it from going off or at least through the front and back of the cart. It's also important to point out that while I haven't taken advantage of it, there are holes that are drilled in the handles, both on the top and on the sides here. There are companies like MultiCart that will allow you to turn these carts into digital decks or digital capture stations, which are really nice. The problem with those are that you can't really haul a lot of gear with that decking that they have because it's not strong enough to be a platform for you to pile all your stuff on and then just be able to pile pelicans and all that kind of jazz. But these holes are used by other companies that take advantage of this, and you could even use together or little clamps that they supply to make the cross arms even stronger and really make this a very strong support system and makes something that's a C+ build quality definitely into a solid B, maybe, I would guess. But it's nice that there are those holes there. I don't have any tie downs for this. I've thought about getting bungee cords to wrap stuff around, but usually stuff that I have on here is so heavy that if I had a bungee cord or tie down system or ratchet straps, if I had like one of my heavy pelicans start to slide off and tip, it would probably actually tip the whole cart over. So I just elect to just be good and play Tetris and layer my pelicans on first and my soft cases on second, put all my soft boxes in here, and maybe I will just use like a few sandbags on top for the tripods. I'm usually not going significant distances with this. When this is loaded, this is like a day in the gym pushing weight sleds across the floor. As you could tell, I'm a big gym aficionado from my physical stature at the moment, but it is a workout, especially pushing this up or downhill. Speaking of which, there are brakes on the wheels. I forgot to mention those. They're okay if you don't have any weight on the cart, but if you're going to have any weight on the cart, you're loading this on or off and you're on any significant incline or decline, put a sandbag, chalk the wheels, make your cart safe. But overall, I'm very happy that I purchased this cart. It makes location work much easier. It takes one trip or it takes multiple trips and makes it one, maybe two if you have a significant amount of gear. It does collapse down really nice. It is affordable, and when you look at the total value of what you could get for cart world out there. Baby it, treat it well, watch out for like any gaps or cracks in asphalt or concrete with those casters. Get a deck for it to be sure, maybe that gaff bag on the back. Those two things I think are kind of must items. And when you have all of this assembled, you'll be amazed what you could pack on here. And that's why I highly recommend the 18R or RT, whatever it's referred to as the cart to go. It's the most expensive cart, but you're going to appreciate that extra weight. You're going to really like it. Hey, speaking of like, now would be a great time to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and if you have, thank you so much for your support. Also, share this with anybody in the photo, film, event business, catering maybe even, that needs a decent cart system. This does have a lot of advantages for different industries. And until next time, I'm MD Welch wishing you all the best from PhotoKitchen.